This one is a lot more standard. You've got Ryan versus Azaria.
Yeah,
Um,
this one's Rhine, Sigma, I think mostly on my tank.
yeah, and so let me get to this. So Lucio does like a couple different things. Some characters have like a play style that you're really trying to like do. Let's say like Reaper. You can play Reaper two different ways, right? You can either brawl Reaper on your front with your tank, or you can flank Reaper, right?
Yeah,
Lucio, I feel like doesn't really have like one thing that you're trying to do all the time. He's got like a couple things that he's good at, and a couple things that he can accomplish. Which means that people who are able to see more opportunities to do these things get more value out of him. So the most obvious thing I feel like that he, like players, especially when you're into like diamond plus ranks, masters plus ranks, speed is like your main thing in these brawl comps, right? You're with your tank, you're speeding your tank. You're trying to get your Rhine in to swing on people. That's like the easy thing. Most people realize like this is where a lot of value comes from, right?
yeah,
But you also have really pretty solid peeling ability. Not that peeling is like a big thing in Overwatch 2, like it was in Overwatch 1, but you can also peel, right? So you can be with your tank, you can be speeding your tank, you can be peeling for, you know, if you have a fragile DPS, or if you have like a support like a Zen or an Ana, you can also be peeling for them. And then the other thing that I think Lucio's need to be looking to do is looking for opportunities to go in, and whether it's to like help a DPS in a duel, or if someone's weak, you can go in and kill them yourself, right? That's something else that Lucio is able to do, right? You've probably heard the term like Reddit Lucio before, right?
for
So
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
just like
I've
wall riding into the back line and getting kills, right?
had a game on Junkertown like that where I was like diving their widow since
Yeah,
my DPS went and take care of it.
right. Sometimes you got to do it all yourself, right? But
That's
sometimes,
Lucio's job.
right, sometimes you just gotta, like, you'll see an opening even on someone that's maybe not normally like your favorite dive target, but they're half HP and like their support's not looking at them, right? You can go in on that. Or if your
Yeah,
Genji's like dueling over in cafe like halfway through this fight, you don't have a Genji, but you get the idea, right? You can go over there and help. And
for
so
sure.
he like there, it's not like you're doing one of those things continuously. You're kind of looking to flop between whatever's giving you the most value at the time. So if you, it's like a big decision making thing. Lucio's main support, lots of decision making to do, but whether you're speeding your tank, whether you're, you know, trying to dive on somebody, whether you're peeling for a support, it's all things you got to look for. And that's why I say there's not really a play style with Lucio. There's just things that can give you value that you want to be constantly being aware of, like where you need to be and what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
So it's just like my general outlining of the character. And let's just watch this, actually see how this goes. Also, I do have a question. Do you do any ult tracking on Lucio?
I've been trying to. I do a lot of shot calling. The ult tracking's hit or miss,
Right.
but I'm normally calling out all my speeds and all my movements.
Right. I do think, I actually think you can get away a little bit with not ult tracking as much on Lucio as like maybe other main supports like a Mercy or a Brig or something like that. But you will notice when you get to GM level that ult tracking is going to start bringing you some value that maybe you're not going to be getting other places, especially with someone like Lucio where you have beat, right? A lot of times you can just reactively use the beat, but if you know when their DPS have ults going into a fight, or when you know like they have a grab and you have to play for grab, things like that, it'll help you realize what you're looking for in a fight, which will open up more opportunities for you to either counteract that play or enable that play on your team, you know.
For sure. I've been trying to like keep mental notes of what I need my beat for, when to use it, and
Right.
like watching out for that.
Yeah, there's also beats for ult and beats for tempo, beats for counter, but we're just
That's something fairly new to me because I was a tank player, so I didn't worry about ults too much before.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how you use them during this. Yeah, DPS is out early, and you guys kind of just get bullied out. I think you're not shooting quite as much as you need to be during this fight, but it's just like a nitpicky thing. You can wall ride backwards to beat. So when you dive in, let's watch this again. I think you have pressure, but then you're kind of looking away. It's just like a small thing. This isn't the end all be
I
all of
should
your
be
gameplay.
facing the other way.
Right,
Yeah.
you can wall ride backwards. It maybe is just a comfort thing. To be charging that beat more because your beat charge is going to be pretty behind here. Right there, Lucio's at 80%, you're at 50%. A lot of that is because you're speeding this Ryan around. And honestly, I don't think you were thinking about this in the game, but you have a Kiriko on your team, and if you can leave the healing for Kiriko, I would, because her ult is...
Get that Kiriko ult,
yeah, that ult is stupid right now. So, if you have
I
communication...
try to be on speed most of the time.
Right.
When I can.
Yeah, when my team scrims, we always like try and leave the healing for Kiriko, right? If you need to heal to save somebody, you heal. You don't think about it, but this isn't too bad. You're just pretty behind here. I think you could be trying to shoot a little bit more, trying to look at the enemy a little bit more, but it's just it's an optimization. It's not like a game-breaking thing.
For sure.
You don't have to beat the grab, right? You should. I mean, you should. It's not that you should, but if you're tracking, you kind of know here. Maybe they have Blossom because you haven't seen it, but Blossom's not like beat is not always the answer for Blossom. They don't have grab.
Speed can deal with Blossom a lot. It feels like
speed and boo.
Walk away from it.
You also have a hog on your team, and if you're communicating, you can like pretty free hooks. Yeah, and you. Really this is the
habit of jumping before I beat.
Yeah. So you beat for tempo, it's good. It's even better if in your head you know that you're not dealing with like a grav, and you probably, this is GM game, you guys probably saw that they used grav last fight and you're not thinking about it too much. Which is when beat for tempo is good, you speed on the beat, looks like you just run them over here. This should be like a warning sign going off in your head, right? Bubbled Reaper is wraithing into my team.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually use his ult, but when people telegraph, good fight from you.
One of those ults too that are pretty easy to see.
Yeah, beat plus amp speed is like a super overwhelming combo, and you're kind of helping with clean up here. Maybe you're thinking about this, maybe you're not. Lucio's really good into a hog because you can, if you're sneaky enough with it, right? You can soft counter the hooks. Good hogs.
I try.
Good hogs can play around it, but as long as it's something you're thinking about, right? Oh, if I play where he can't hook me, but I play close enough that if he does hit a hook, I can go moop him. It's also way harder for hogs to hit hook if you're speeding. If people are strafing with speed, it's much more difficult as a hog player.
Yeah, I tried to bully hogs, I think, and for the most part. I guess we'll see. I try to mess around with them a lot.
All right, let's talk about the ult. I don't love this one as much, right? It's another tempo ult, which is fine. The tempo ult is not the problem. The problem is you have already used your amp speed before you go in with this, right? So you amp speed out of spawn. And there's your ult, and you're already out of amp speed, and they have a Lucio on their team, right? Is their Lucio dead? No, he's chilling. And so theoretically, you don't really have a way to get on top of them. If this was a better team that you're playing against, and who knows, they might kite it anyways, probably not, but a better team here just kites. They just walk away and they come back 5 seconds later and your whole beat is wasted. So you do give your team some space here to move up. But it really doesn't accomplish that much, right? Luckily they counter beat. You kind of get some value. But a better team, amp speed, they're out. And your ult really gets no value. And at this point, we're kind of just an aura bot, right? We're kind of floating around. We're amping when we have amp. We're switching between heal. And there's just more to be doing here. It's not that you need to go solo kill the Sojourn or whatever, but right? But there's more impact to be had than sitting here shooting a couple shots, amping when you have amp. You could be putting a bit more pressure on the enemy team, right? It's much. Now, if you notice, Sojourn has a shot, but Sojourn's like my the first target I think of, right? She's the threat to your team. She's the one who's most able. I guess it's easiest for her to do things against your team. You guys clean up here anyways, right? Surely. But I feel like these are just going on like a long time. And I feel like your impact is like pretty minimal. The aura is good, right? But like I you know, probably a gold Lucio player, I could probably sit here and do the same things, right? Anyone can kind of sit here and amp and shoot at the hog every once in a while. In this game, it's gonna work because your teammates are kind of putting in the work, but and you can get a little more pressure on their team. Okay, here we go. Oh, but we're kind of back safety. Team wins the fight. We're kind of just here. It's okay to just be here. Right? It's not like it's a bad thing to just exist. Especially on a character that has an aura, right? You'd rather do this on a Lucio than anything else, but this fight, I like this fight more. You don't really need an amp there, but it's a small, you know, it is what it is. You're in the middle of a fight. You're probably not thinking about your amp too much. Yeah, this is good. Pretty uneventful actually for my part. I just
kind of existed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just kind of here. We're doing the thing, right? We're shooting at people. You know, we're providing aura for whatever that's worth, but there is value to be had that you know, maybe in a tougher game could flip the table.
I think I've been winning a lot in games, even maybe not doing that much. I'd say potentially just due to the fact that I communicate a lot. Because I'll join games and it'll just be straight crickets, but like I feel like me talking can make the difference most of the time.
Yep. You're also doing, I haven't mentioned this yet, but you're really good at staying alive. Which
that's something I focused on because I was dying a lot at first because I was going out too far.
Exactly. A ton of Lucios in the lower ranks have really high deaths per 10 because, you know, with this much mobility and, you know, they see people make these plays on Lucio where they're going out and killing people. They feel like they're invincible, right? They can move so fast, they have speed, whatever. And you're kind of the embodiment of the safe Lucio playstyle, and it's working, right? Especially when you're not trying to eke out every inch of value. It's okay to just live and provide value to your team, and that's actually when I do lower elo VOD reviews. That's like the thing. No matter what role I'm talking to, or whatever, no matter what elo, if it's like diamond or under, my whole thing is just like stay alive, and you'll do so much more. But you haven't really had any stupid deaths. Your deaths have been at the end of a team fight, which, you know, at the end of a team fight, you've already lost. It is what it is. You haven't gotten picked. You haven't died first in an important team fight. Your beats have been pretty standard. Your speed and healing is pretty good, right? This is the not the cookie cutter, but the standard value Lucio, right?
Yeah, I think maybe I feel a little out of place in these games still because I was like a diamond support maybe. I didn't really play this role, so I'm not super confident taking those duels against these, you know, Grandmaster DPS players yet.
Yep. This is
I play kind of scared.
Yeah, this is a small nitpick. We spend 3-ish or 4-ish seconds not shooting anything. Right, where we could get maybe 3 bursts off in there. It's not, again, we're in GM, right? We're trying to optimize our gameplay. Of course, the difference between low GM and top 500 is big. The difference between low top 500 and, you know, top of the ladder is big. There's still a lot of room to improve, but we're top 1% now. We're trying to work on the small things, and you should kind of not just be holding left click, but basically holding left click. If you're shooting a shield, it's fine. If you're shooting a player, it's fine. But if you're not shooting, it's kind of like, what are we doing, right? I'd love to see if you can get up here and just pressure her off the high ground. It may not be always like a great thing, right? If she's supercharged up here and you kind of pop your head up and boom, you're dead. Depends on how good the Sojourn is. But if you can recognize whether she's charged or not and come up here, literally you don't even have to shoot at her. You don't have to try and get the kill. You can just knock her off.
I think I go for it.
Right. Right. It could still happen. I see you wall right in here, but this is like a really good power position for her. You have a Rein. It's really hard for Rein to deal with this. And we did talk before this happened, right? You kind of realize that this is your job. Yeah, you're like a mini diva, right? You can get up here and get these fuckers off my high ground, right? So
sure. I think my movement's not completely up to par with that.
Yeah, it's a little awkward with like the bushes and you kind of miss the boot, but the idea that you recognize that that's something you can do, that you can go up there and knock these people out of power positions, right? It's essentially like taking space for your team. Sure that your team's not going to go up here because you knock them off, but since they're not up here in this powerful position where she can really spray down whoever she wants, she can get really good disruptor shots from here. It's providing a lot of value. Your Rein kind of goes in and just feeds. I think he dies somewhere over here. Yeah. Your Rein just goes in and feeds. You're probably going to lose this fight simply because you don't have a Rein, but we're just going to watch and see. Yeah, there we go. That's really good. Good stuff. Doing our best to survive. Your tank actually gets back, so it's time to play, right? It's time to do something. And this is good. This is what we're talking about at the beginning, right? This is one of your things. You see a low health enemy, and you should think like, oh, I could finish this kill. And it was kind of low hanging fruit, right? He's just sitting right in front of you, wall right in on point. But recognizing opportunities like these are good, and you actually stall out long enough that your tank gets back, and you guys don't just give up the point for free here. So it's not over yet, right? You're still only 4, but the fact that you guys are still alive right now is pretty good. You were doing really good surviving. You say your water rating's not that good, but it's good enough, right? I mean, you're doing okay. Amp speed out of the Kiriko. Your Rein doesn't want to leave.
Rein didn't want to do it. Yeah,
right.
I told him he didn't want to.
Right. This sucks, but the fact, I mean, whether it was coincidence or not, having amp speed to kite this thing is really what you want to be doing. You'll see
had
this
shatter. That was his reasoning at the end, but he said no, we can fight this, and then he shattered, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's why.
Fair enough, right? Fair enough. But you'll see this depending on how much you watch Overwatch League. This is what they do. Instead of, they'll either trade their Kiriko ults, happens a lot, or if they want to try and save their Kiriko ult to make a play, they'll track it so they know Kiriko has ult, and then they'll save amp speed for it. Whether you tracked it or not, or just had the coincidence, it doesn't matter. You tried amp speed, your Rein doesn't want to. But playing in this ult against a semi-competent team is just death, right? You're gonna lose like
the strongest ult in the game.
Right, you're gonna lose 9 times out of 10 fighting on a Kiriko ult. You would have loved if your Rein left with you there, but you did what you needed to do. Alright. Hate to see it. Your Rein shatters with absolutely no follow-up. Probably hasn't looked behind him in the last 6 years to see where his team is. Now we are in an enclosed space with the Sigma. We don't love it. Oh my god, and you guys commit Kitsune rush to this too? This is just ugly. Don't really have much to say about this fight. I don't love it. Not that it's your fault, right? I mean... Nice. They go ahead and use the flux on you? I don't think anyone else was even there, right? Let's see.
These are GM players, I feel like.
Yeah, he solo fucks you and he doesn't even hit you.
I got booped out of it by their Lucio.
Look at this guy.
Second.
Anyways, this is fine. Your Rein kind of tossed this fight. I saw what he was going for, but and point falls. Yeah. Actually, I really like your play during that fight. You guys lose, but you didn't die before anything happened. You had your speed for the Kiriko, right? It was good stuff. I really like that actually. we're with our Ryan, right? Like it's not terrible, but you're it feels like you could be doing on something somewhere else that's actually valuable right now. Maybe you're trying to save your Ryan because you feel like he could die here, which he could, and
He
probably, you
called
know.
for us to go point, so I went with
Okay,
them. That's
right.
what happened there.
I think listening to the call is fine, but when you realize it's just like you and Ryan chasing a Lucio, it's kind of like you're not gonna get this kill, right? This
So
guy's
yeah,
right, and there's still, you know, there were people up on high ground, kind of punching down at your team right here. So let's go back 10 seconds.
he was calling to contest the Lucio on point, and then he told me to speed boost after the Lucio.
Right, and so we can attribute this to bad shot calling, but just pretend he didn't make that call, right? There's a lot of value to be had by, even if you can just get a boop on one of these guys, get the
Getting that
Sigma,
Sojourn down or
right,
Sig down,
Sig
yeah.
or Sojourn, or putting some pressure on this low health Genji. I mean, he's gonna be fine. He's got supports looking at him, but there's just so much more to be done right here. And listening to call it is fine, but what ends up happening is that your team can't even really move forward because they have 4 people between them and you, right? So your Ryan made the call, but I can't imagine this is going to end up well.
Thankfully, those two turned around for us. I think that kind of works out in our favor, actually.
Right. We'll see how this
Okay,
goes. But sweet. Everyone lives. I'm very surprised. I would think you would get punished for something like that in a GM game, but hey, it works. And your team's back together, kind of where you want to be. Healing, good. You didn't even have to really do anything. You just kind of looked at him and you ran away. But you're doing the things we talked about, right? You know, you can peel, you can be aggro, trying to finish a kill, or get a kill, or contest the high ground. You can also speed around your Ryan. We've seen all 3. Not too much peeling, but there hasn't been too much peeling to do. So nice.
There goes that me jumping before I beat thing.
Yeah.
Nearly dying.
Almost got you killed, right? But luckily the Genji wasn't on top of it. So good beat.
I need to get more comfortable with that backwards wall riding. There's a lot of times I'm just looking away.
Yeah. The settings actually turned off by default. So
I have it on.
Okay,
I'm just
good.
not comfortable with it.
Yep. Yeah, Lucio Surf is a good game mode, but it's really for rollouts. I think getting better at Lucio is just playing Lucio in games more, especially with wall riding. It's such like a complex mechanic, where it's easy to start with, but it's really hard to get good at all of it. And the more you'll play, the more you'll get comfortable with that.
For sure. I probably have maybe 100, 200 hours on Lucio. Not a ton.
Right. I like how we're being aggro here. We're taking angles that are different from our Ryan, right? So it's the Sig is not going to splash you, right? You're not just walking. This is good, but you boop him away from your Ryan here. Maybe just for the damage, just out of maybe you're not thinking about it, right?
I
It's
think yeah,
autopilot.
for the damage during the flux was why I did that.
Right, but it makes it so that your Ryan can't really swing on him.
That's right.
At least, and who knows, maybe you guys get the kill here. Hopefully you have amp speed, whether you use it or not, we'll see. But you don't want to push people away from your full health Ryan. Amp speed, nice. Sigma just dies. Yeah, good. You make up for it, right? It's fine, but you don't want to autopilot, and if the boop's not gonna be able to secure the kill, you don't want to push them away from your Ryan. But your overall play is fine, and your aim is not gonna like hold you back right now.
Actually, I downloaded Aim Lab yesterday. I'm taking initiative.
Okay, yeah. Let's actually spend 3 minutes talking about aim. Like, just I'll try and keep this short. I'm a nerd about this, but man, aim labs, it's cool, right? Kovacs is cool. It's good, maybe to do a little bit of that. But really, Overwatch is so different from those games, right? So you can input your FOV, you can input your sensitivity, and you can get comfortable with like the distance your mouse has to travel, but there's so much movement in Overwatch, and there's like every character has a different hitbox, and every character strafes differently, and you have different travel, right?
Absolutely.
I would use Kovacs or aim labs or whatever you choose just as a warm-up, not as like a super long one, not as a practice routine to get your aim better. unless maybe like a Widow player, but even a Widow player, I would tell the same thing. Spend 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, warming up before you hop on Overwatch. If it makes you feel confident, it's okay. But if you want to commit time to aim training, you can do it in game. There's custom games where you can practice on the character models, which is like closer to accurate to a game situation. It's still not perfect, right? Because what's missing from a custom game where you're shooting at bots?
Them attacking you. Pressure.
Right. There's no threat of you dying, right? There's no panic of what you need to do to stay alive. Well, you know, you're not focusing on your movement while you're doing it. And so I think the best practice, that this is what I recommend to everybody, is trying to get into like a tryhard free-for-all lobby, or I mean, that's the best. Tryhard free-for-all, it's a custom game where people just try hard and free-for-all.
Yeah,
but
that sounds painful, honestly.
Right. And you kind of sacrifice, like, you have less encounters, let's call them encounters, right? Where you spend some of the time not shooting as much as you would in like a Kovacs or an aim lab, where you're just constantly engaged. But it's much more realistic, right? You're under threat, you're shooting at the right hitboxes, you're focusing on your movement too, right? Especially with Lucio.
Yeah.
And so that's where I would spend most of your time. It's okay to do some aim labs. It's okay to do some custom game against bots. But really, if mechanics is something you want to work on, go into a tryhard free-for-all with Lucio. Go into a tryhard free-for-all with any character you're trying to learn. I think you'll get way better results that way, because it's much more realistic, and you get to practice, especially with Lucio, you get to practice your movement too, which is such a huge part of Lucio. I don't love the amp, but right, it's probably like autopilot, right? And it's gonna be okay. You've got disruptor shot, Genji dash through your team, but you're all pretty safe right here. You have both supports. He's not really gonna be doing anything here. I would just caution you not to autopilot your abilities. You want to be thinking about, like, are we actually in threat of death? Or you don't, and I'm not saying you have to amp only when someone's gonna die. That's not how it works, but right.
That's one of the big things with the other person I had that review me too. I was just like wasting every single ability.
Right.
I'm trying to be more conscious about it. I think it wasn't as bad in this game as it was in the other game.
Yeah, and I've started to look at maybe a little, I wouldn't call amp a small thing. Amp is not a small thing, but things that I wouldn't nitpick about other ranks, maybe I've started to look at in this game, because your overall gameplay is fine, right? You're in GM, right? You generally know how to play the game, where I'm not telling you that you're always out of position or whatever it may be. I would just say in one sentence, like, don't autopilot your abilities, right? When he dashes through, take 2 milliseconds in your head to think, like, do we need amp right now? Is amp something that we need? And it's kind of like, not really. Because, like, what happens if they, like, they see you use amp speed, and then Kiriko, like, throws her, she doesn't have it. And again, that's why ult tracking is important, so you know these things. But what if she just threw rush down in here and they just barrel down on your team and you don't have amp speed anymore, right? Small things you gotta think about. Ryan. Poor Ryan. What are we doing, man?
Maybe I could have beat it there.
Right. I was about to say. It's tough, especially tough decision if you know that they have blade, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, do I use it here, or do I save this Rhine?
I think I was hoping for the Suzu on that.
Exactly. I was about to say it too,
the beat.
right? And I don't know if there's any way for you to know that you'd use Suzu here. See, did you see it? Yeah, so maybe you could have seen it, but I don't fault you for missing this.
I definitely could have seen that.
Yeah, it was barely on your screen, right? And so even if you don't see the Suzu, right, you see him floating. Does he drop his shield, or does his shield break? Please tell me his shield broke. It broke. Nice. And I probably would say you just got to use the beat here, right? Because if your Ryan dies, oh man, it's not optimal. You still have a guy running back from spawn. Maybe you made the right call. I personally would have beat here, you know, especially in hindsight. Hindsight's always 20/20. You know, when your Ryan dies here, you don't, like, when do you ever win this fight with a dead Ryan? Probably never.
Yeah, it's over.
Right? Whereas if you beat, at least you can say, all right, we know he's gonna blade after the beat. Can we try and focus out this Genji? Or like, can we make a plan in the next 4 seconds so that when this Genji blades, we know what we're gonna do.
I think he ends up holding blade for quite a while here though, because he's scared of my beat, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right.
So I kind of keep their Genji out of action by holding it.
Yeah, but you're also out of this fight because you don't have a Ryan. And whether that's your fault or not, it's not really something we're talking about, but they already got the point, I think. No.
Yeah, they did.
They did? Yeah. It's fully blue, but and it probably is Lucio's job to touch. I don't know what the comms were like saying, and if anyone's saying that.
I wasn't expecting to touch there after my Ryan just died.
Right, I wouldn't be there, but
and then
clearly the call was
right.
Clearly the call or a signal, something came out. We're like, oh, okay, we're gonna go try and touch.
Our Kiri wasn't communicating.
It's too late.
I went for it when I saw it.
And everyone dies.
Look kind of lost there.
Yep, and there's a lot of time where you're not shooting, right? So you're obviously focusing on trying to live. I get it, right? You're trying to clean up your wall ride and live, but we're just kind of staring at the wall, right? We finally shoot, but I mean it's too late anyways. Good not to use the beat in that fight. Very, very, very minor thing. This is probably the most minor thing I've said, but we're reloading after one shot. I do it too, but just you can spam out at a barrier. Like the barrier exists, Sigma exists. There's people to shoot. I just caution you, the tiniest critique ever, just don't get into the habit of reloading when there's stuff you can be shooting at.
I'm probably already there.
Right. So,
I do need to be shooting a lot more.
Yeah. And I came from Call of Duty. I have the same. I play Ana, dude, and I reload way too much. But you don't have to reload all the time. So speed's a little early. I don't know if there's a call for it, but we kind of don't have the opportunity to get onto them, right? We're speeding here. Let's just see when we use the amp. Where our Ryan is when we use the amp. Right, we're here. And we're trying to close the distance, right? But I feel like we're just a little bit too far here to get on top of anyone during this speed. That won't work. We get there, but oh, scary.
And I jump before my beat again.
Yeah. I think the most noticeable thing, I think you even realized it, right? Like, if you had to guess, let's just watch this one more time, right? Like, what do you think I'm gonna say about this?
I'm once again standing there not shooting anything, and I jump on their tank.
We're in front of our Ryan, looking at what, 3 or 4 people, and I think even in game you realize it, right? You like kind of very quickly oh shit, I'm out of line, it's time to leave, right? Like it's not as bad as I thought it was, but you're looking at a couple of people that you don't need to be looking at. Your Ryan is off in the distance. Good beat. I don't think your Ryan gets it.
Because the jump.
Your Ryan does get it. All right. Good beat. Amp is fine. Your soldier's out of position. As much as I would love to say you can go help that guy, I mean, like, how much can you help that guy, right?
Oh yeah, people look at that.
Yeah, how like sure, right? Maybe you make the hero play and you go in here and you peel these guys off. Maybe you do. Maybe the best Lucio in the world does realize that, but I just don't know how realistic that is. I don't know how comfortable I'm telling you, right, that like this is a play that you can make. I would say, right, this is not a safe position for you to, if you go in and try and save your Sojourn here, worst
Gonna get hit
case,
by a rock.
you're dead too, and your Sojourn's dead, and then you really, like, the fight's over, right? So
I think I went for the Bastion because I kind of realized she
Yeah.
was done for.
yeah, and then yeah, I did notice the whole, like, oh, Bastion needs help, but you do 16 healing per second when you're not amped, I believe.
Yeah.
That Bastion's got 300 HP, right? You're not going to sit there for 20 seconds. And it maybe occurs to you, right? Like, maybe that's not the best use of my time. Maybe there's better things I can be doing than idle healing a Bastion.
I think the thought was I kind of stayed near him, try to keep him in the radius, give him a little bit.
Right. Ryan actually... How does that only... That's so sad. How does that only hit Sigma? Did he on the double jump?
And he gets Suzu'd.
Well, that's very sad.
Lucio's on the wall.
He's looking at 3 people and he hits 1. Yeah. And then he gets Suzu'd because cooldown tracking. We need work. Not you, but someone needs work. As someone who hasn't played in GM, right? I would expect, frankly, I just expect more. Especially from this Ryan. I know Ryans that don't shatter if they have Suzu, even in like lower elos. So I'm not even a coaching comment, just like a I'm surprised comment about the quality of this game right now.
It's all over the place.
Yeah. You get hit with rail right before you get picked up. It's very sad.
Honestly, most of the people, it seems like they don't care. Even still in GM, like most of the people are just kind of messing around.
Yeah, I think your position here is fine as well. I mean, you're on corner, right, which is where you're trying to be. You're even with your Ryan and your Kiriko, but I'm very Suzu, really? Like, I don't know. Again, I hesitate to say there's anything you can even do about that one. You get hit by the rail, she walks out with ult, pops you die.
And I was in the Sigma.
Right, you die to the flux, or I think Sigma shoots you in the flux, but I like this positioning is pretty safe. Maybe my one small thing, again, pretty small, but we can be wall riding in situations like these. Generally speaking, like being up on a wall is always safer than not, but it's like how much of that outcome does it really change, right? It's just like a good habit to get into, right? Being a couple feet off the ground, maybe you can shoot over shield, maybe it's easier to get the headshot angle. And like if this Sojourn runs out on you here, maybe it's harder for her to turn and try and get the shot, but that's just like a small thing that maybe we're not thinking about enough. It's really not the end of the world. Like you were leaving, right? You amp speed and you look at the wall, but deaths is one of the things I love to analyze, right? Like, why did we die? Was it a mistake? Was there something we could do about it? And this one's just kind of like go next, right?
Yeah, I think most of my deaths have been good.
You're right. I agree. A lot of the value, especially to lower elo players that I bring, is pointing out why we're dying in situations that we shouldn't be dying in, and kind of showing them how to correct that, right? But here, I've reviewed a GM Mercy, and it was kind of the same themes, right? Where you've already cut out these things, which is why we're in GM, and you got to look for like smaller, more incremental value, right? Like shooting more, thinking about our amp, ult tracking so we know when we're going to use beat or when we want to use beat. Kind of the more information you have, the better decisions you can make mid-game. So
yeah,
that's
definitely the biggest things I've noticed, especially the shooting thing. I'm just like standing doing nothing so much.
Right, and your beat charge is slow because of it. And maybe it doesn't cost you in this game, but if you die 85 to beat in a critical fight where maybe you could have had beat if you were shooting more. Yeah. Right. So
I've noticed consistently throughout just about every game I'm charging beats slower than the enemy Lucio.
Yep. Your overall gameplay is solid. It really is. Your fundamentals are fantastic. Like not dying. I love people who are good at not dying when they shouldn't be dying. Providing aura when you need to. That's just like Lucio kind of exists thing, right? You're good at that too. There, it just feels like, although I can't quite put my finger on it. It's like there's value to be had that maybe is
You
like
need to be
just
looking to make plays.
right, a little out of our reach right now. Like we're doing the thing, right? We're there when we need to be there. We're not dying. We're beating pretty good. Honestly, for someone who's not super comfortable with beat or Lucio or whatever, I don't have any big complaints about your beats. They felt pretty solid. But there's just like something missing, right? Maybe some plays to be made, some kills to be had, more shooting, more ult tracking. I definitely would work on that, right? It's something that everyone can always work on ult tracking, but when you're on a character who is less mechanically intensive, right? So
Yeah.
you're still wall riding a lot, but wall riding needs to become second nature to you. Shooting, it's kind of like you treat them like spam, right? There's times where you want to, it's just, I don't know, you probably, probably can't compare to Junkrat because you probably don't play Junkrat, you're main tank, but like sometimes you spam on Junkrat to spam, and sometimes you're like, I need to hit
Actually,
that person right now, and you're actually aiming, right?
yeah, I
Right.
have played quite a bit around. I probably have a couple 100 hours on him.
Right. Lucio's the same way. Like a lot of the time, you're just spamming, right? You're just hitting something. It doesn't matter. You're just putting damage somewhere. But there's some times where there's like low targets that are called out or pinged where you need to be aiming. But in general, he's not considered a mechanically intensive hero. And because of that, you have more time to think like what's going on around me, what ults are coming into the play, things like that you can always work on. And when you have more information, you're able to make better decisions. I feel like you're already making pretty good decisions about where you need to be, who you need to be with, things like that. And so it leaves me with this kind of sour taste where I'm not giving you any like big game changing advice, but that's kind of what we expect, right? If you had big game changing advice left to give, you wouldn't be in GM, right? There's like these outlier situations where some 16-year-old with super cracked out aim has horrible positioning and makes it to GM, but that's not where most people are, including you. Your gameplay is very solid. You just have these little things that you need to be thinking about. I think one thing that can help you a lot that maybe isn't as straightforward as just like shoot more or whatever, is not autopiloting in like mid-game. So
yeah, I think I see myself like tunnel visioning a lot. Like there with the Mercy dying to the barrage, me looking for a target, not shooting.
yeah,
I think
there's just some instances where it feels like we're doing something because it's like what we normally do, not because it's the right thing to do right now. And so the critical thinking can kind of take your gameplay to the next level, right? Do I really need amp right now? Like, and it's not that you're saving amp for the absolute most critical opportunity ever, but it's like we're not amping to amp. You know, we're not booping Sigma to boop Sigma. We're not beating just to, you kind of get the idea, right? It's like, why, like you need to be able, and this is tough. This is really tough. As someone who I feel like I have good game knowledge, I mess this up all the time in game, right? You're in the heat of the moment. It's hard to think about everything when you're just trying to play and make the best decisions on the fly. But when you look back at these VODs, you kind of want to be able to think, why did I use this here? Like, does it still make sense now? And it should.
Yeah.